News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you. It's 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, the 17th of August, and this is Britain's Newsroom here on GB News with me, Tom Harwood, and Ellie Costello. So coming up today...
GB News' Don't Kill Cash campaign is heading to Downing Street this afternoon. Almost 300,000 of you have signed the petition to ensure that cash remains a legal tender until 2050, and there's still time to sign it.
And it's a huge morning for tens of thousands of students as it's A-level results day. Grades are expected to drop for a second year running after the pandemic led to inflation in those top grades. We'll have the very latest reaction.
And the Lionesses have done it. They have booked a place in the World Cup final after beating hosts Australia. Spain are up next in the final on Sunday.
It's going to be an incredibly exciting game. The first time that the women's team have ever been to the final. The first time that an English football team has been to the final, of course, since 1966. But the big question now, and the question that we want to ask you at home is, should there be a bank holiday declared if England win? The Labour Party, the Lib Dems are calling for it as well. The government is resisting it. But what do you think?
Yeah, do let us...
Very good morning to you. It is 9:31. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB Newsroom. Students are getting their A-level results across the country, waking up to hopefully good results, and results have largely returned to pre-COVID levels. The proportion of candidates receiving top grades, though an A or an A star, has fallen by almost 10% from last year, but remains higher than before the pandemic. The overall pass rate is 97.3%. That's the lowest figure, though, since 2008. Grades are based on teachers' predictions in 2020 and 2021. The number of students accepted for a place at university is down 2.6 from last year, but up by 15% on 2019. GB News' Don't Kill Cash petition is being delivered to the Chancellor later this afternoon. Jeremy Hunt will receive more than 270,000 signatures on behalf of viewers and listeners who've joined the campaign. The letter is calling on the government to protect the status of cash as legal tender and a widely accepted form of payment until at least 2050. You can watch the petition being handed to Downing Street. That's live on GB News from 2 o'clock. Spending more time outside can help prevent children develop short-sightedness. The Global Myopia Awareness Coalition says a decline in the amount of time children spend outdoors could be impacting their eye health. However, spending just 76 extra minutes outside per day can reduce the risk of short-sightedness by up to 50%. And hundreds of firefighters in Spain have been battling wildfires on Tenerife, which authorities say are out of control. A number of villages have been evacuated as fires spread more than 7 square miles in 24 hours. It broke out at a national park near the Mount Teide volcano, that's Spain's highest peak, which has hampered emergency services efforts. Last week, a heatwave in the Canaries left many woodland areas dry, which of course heightens the risk of wildfires. More on all of our stories on our website. That is gbnews.com.
A very good morning to you. This is Britain's Newsroom here on GB News, and we're very happy to have your company this morning. My name's Tom Harwood, and this is Ellie Costello.
Yes, we're very, very happy to have your company this morning. And of course, we're not over that game yesterday. The Lionesses, wow, what a performance. Let us know, are you looking forward to Sunday? And the question this morning we have to you is, if the Lionesses win, which I think they will, it's a given.
Yeah. Although don't jinx it.
No, it's about manifesting. It's about being confident. You've got to speak what you hope comes into existence. It's going to happen. Should we then have a bank holiday to celebrate? Absolutely is the answer to that.
Or if we look at the number of... We've had so many bank holidays already this year, and one of the things that the Bank of England and that the ONS and that all of these organisations have said is that when we have bank holidays, economic output goes down. We skirted a recession the last time we had too many bank holidays in a single quarter. Is it worth skirting recession to have a bank holiday when the game's on Sunday morning? We've got all of Sunday to celebrate.
But you need Monday.
To recover.
At least another day to recover. And people will be in the pubs. We're going to be contributing to the economy in a whole different way. Yeah. So people will be celebrating. And Tom, the last time we were in a World Cup final, women's team or men's team was 1966. Many people not even in their lifetime. We must celebrate and we must have a bank
We
holiday.
must celebrate, absolutely, but that doesn't necessarily mean we need an entire day of lost productivity.
No, I think it does. I think that's exactly what it requires.
gbviews@gbnews.com, join the debate.
It's divided us, for sure. Now, GB News is set to deliver a petition to the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, this afternoon on behalf of over 270,000 viewers and listeners, you at home, who have joined our Don't Kill Cash campaign.
With more than 5 million adults in Britain still relying on cash, the letter calls for laws to protect its status as legal tender as a widely accepted means of payment until at least 2050.
Yes, well, let's speak now to GB News' economics and business editor, Liam Halligan, who joins us live from the Albert Embankment this morning, next to a giant inflatable pig. Good morning to you and the pig, Liam. Tell us why you're there.
Morning, Ellie, and I agree with you about the bank holiday. Our giant inflatable GB News Don't Kill Cash pig, as yet unnamed. We're going to come to that. What do we call this pig in a moment? But we're going to need to update those news bulletins, because just in the last half hour, we've added 5,000 more signatures to our GB News Don't Kill Cash campaign. You can put your name on that petition by going to gbnews.com/cash and pressing the button there. 285,000 names.
Have lost connection to Liam Halligan.
No, we've just overridden Liam by pointing out this petition here. It's taken precedence because that's the petition page that we can see. Let's bring back Liam. Sorry, we overrode your video there by pointing everyone to where they can find this petition. Liam, should we go back to you and your giant inflatable pig?
So indeed, Tom, we have just broken through 285,000 signatures. GB News viewers and listeners now backing this campaign in droves. Let's get to 300,000 before myself and other GB News presenters go to Downing Street and hand in that petition to the Chancellor at number 11, because what we are campaigning for is to not kill cash. So many of you have written to us, so many of you have got in touch via email to say that you're concerned. It's more and more difficult to use cash. Many shops are no longer taking cash. Banks are withdrawing their services from many high streets. People increasingly living a long way away from banks. People need cash in their daily lives. 10% of homes, Tom and Ellie, don't have regular access to the internet. They can't shop online. Over 1 million people don't have bank accounts. They don't have debit cards. They can't tap to pay. They need cash. It's a very, very important aspect of our economy, our culture, our society. That's why we are campaigning today to not kill cash. 285,000 signatures and counting. Let's get to 300,000 by today lunchtime.
Well, Liam, we've got to ask you, what are the suggestions to name this giant inflatable pig that you're standing beside?
Well, I tell you what, this upcoming World Cup final on Sunday, it's going to be hotly contested, but so is the competition to name this inflatable pig. We've had some brilliant suggestions from GB News viewers and listeners. We've had Dosh, we've had Peggy. Julie says penny, sixpence or tuppence. Wendy says Prue, as in Prudence. Irene says trotter. Grant says sterling, as in pound sterling. Claire, in a very, very clever acronym, suggests truffle. Pig reference there. Truffle stands for tackling regulations unfair to our financial future, legislate for everybody. Brian suggests Johnny Cash. A lot of people are suggesting Nigel. I don't know where they get that name from. Perhaps we could rig up our inflatable pig with a little cigar. How about our pig with a monocle? Jacob Rees-Hogg. Quidley, says Andrew. Quidley, says Andrew. GB News viewers and listeners, let it never be said they are not innovative. They are not wordsmiths. Quidley, says Andrew. Piggy McPigface, says John. Bill, as in pound, I guess, says Dennis. Crackling, says Len. But I have to say, Frank is the current front runner. I don't mind my idea of Sterling Dosh being knocked off, because Frank says pound hog. It's a good one.
Pound hog.
You ain't nothing but a pound hog.
I ain't nothing
Yeah.
but a pound hog. Oh,
You get
Liam,
it? You get it? Because it's all hogs pounds. Keep pounds inside it.
Liam, thank you so much for bringing us that. That's given us such
Sign the
joy,
petition.
such laughter in the studio. Right now, we'll be back to Liam and indeed to Liam's pig later on. Whether we're calling it Jacob Rees-Hogg, I think.
Jacob Rees-Hogg tickled us, yes.
Well, although I think before I heard that, I was leaning towards tuppence. I thought that was...
Tuppence was lovely, and I also like Penny the pig.
Penny,
pound, you know, there's a lot to be done there. Do keep those names coming in, because that is brilliant.
Yes, no,
brilliant
all of your
stuff.
suggestions are graciously appreciated here.
Yes, gbviews@gbnews.com.
But back to the other big news story of today. The England women's team has reached the World Cup final.
Yes, they now take on Spain on Sunday, a real battle of Europe.
Well, we're pleased to be joined by the broadcaster Paul Coit. And Paul,
yes.
I suppose that on one respect, we know that our team has been so good. They've won the Euros to some extent.
You're not going to have a go about a bank holiday again with me, are you? Is that where we're going?
I'm just saying, we sort of expected this, didn't we?
No, it's a World Cup. You can never expect anything. You can't ever expect anything in tournament football, especially international football. Now, yes, we won the Euros, but we hadn't been that great coming into these. And also, you look at some of the other teams that have gone by the wayside. You've got the United States, you know, historically the best footballing female team in the world that there's ever been. They've won it more times than anybody else. They've gone. You've got France have gone, Brazil and Japan, former winners as well. So it's like we've just kept slowly through and without making too much fuss. And now we've got to now we've got through the semi-final, the final, and also the other point I've been making a lot, and that is momentum. The thing about tournament, I think I mentioned it to you guys before. It's about momentum, and it's about timing it right. It's just like it's like a race as well. It's as long as you get the timing right. If you're running 1,500 metres, you're going to fly off at the start, or else you're going to die at the end. And that's the way they've done it.
Yeah.
And they've timed it brilliantly. The best they played, I thought, was yesterday, and now Spain. It's a walk in the park.
Well, let's hope so.
Be a walk.
Let's hope so. Take us back to yesterday. What did you make of that game? Because it was nerve-wracking.
It is nerve-wracking. The thing is, it's very difficult to watch these games when you support a side, because you can't look at it objectively and sort of looking at it and thinking, well, are we OK? Because it's so tense. And this is how it was. But I thought what was very good about England is how calm they were. Now, we went ahead with an amazing goal and then went into half-time 1-0 up, then 1-1. And that's the time often that everybody's going to start thinking, uh-oh, here we go. This is where it's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Australia beat us in April. They beat GB in the Olympics. So there's settles to score, and it's almost like they're the bogey team. But calm. And then went on, and then two more goals.
Very British way.
It is.
Don't you think?
You know what?
Just keep calm and carry on.
It really is. It very is a British way. You know.
You can keep using that if you like.
Can I use
that?
that?
Yeah, take that. If you like.
Okay. Keep
I'm
calm,
doing
carry
sports
on.
analysis now.
Amazing. No, fantastic.
You're on the money.
So
I
many
made your day
hats.
by agreeing with you. But you are absolutely right.
And you think it'll be a walk in the park on Sunday now?
No, let's be honest. It's not going to be a walk in the park, because I don't want to say that, but I am extremely confident that we will win. I thought Australia was going to be the hardest test. Not only because of the team, but also because of the crowd and the fact that it's being played in Sydney. Yeah. And Australia have really bought into this, and it does make a difference. All the stuff about, the 13th or the 12th player and the 13th player, the more fans there are, it will then inspire a team on the pitch. It does make a difference. But England dealt with it brilliantly. Spain have had problems in their camp with the manager. He's had arguments with players. There were players that refused to play for him back in September. Some are back, some aren't. It's not a happy camp to be in. They lost 4-0 earlier on in the tournament. I just think we are the best side there. And if we just play as we should, we'll be OK.
You mentioned the troubles with Spain and their manager. It seems that Serena Wiegmann, the England manager, has just been managing this so well. Yeah. How does that dynamic work?
It's the fourth final that she's had in a row, because she was the Netherlands manager as well. Of course, with the Euros, there's just something about her. We were talking to Harry Redknapp just about half an hour ago, and this is something I'm always interested in management. How much of it is football knowledge? How much of it is actually management of players, and how well and how they deal with people? Because especially these days, a lot of footballers, a lot of sports people and people in showbiz are very delicate flowers, and you have to handle egos very carefully. So she does that brilliantly. It's a very close-knit group of players as well, which also makes a difference, because you can sometimes have some of the great teams, but there are groups, there's cliques amongst them. But when everybody is very close together, which really seems to be the case, that's got a lot to do with it as well. They're great players, they're very close. I'm looking at 6-0 now, Thomas. But I really am very confident. I mean, obviously, this could come back and bite us. We can't take it for granted.
No complacency.
No way that we will. There'll be no complacency. The Americans, after they won, just before they got knocked out, over-celebrating. And it's like, oh, we're going to win, we're the best side, we're the best in the world. And then they came a cropper, we celebrated, and then straight down the tunnel onto the next game. And I'm very impressed by the way they're handling it.
And the prep in the next 2 days is going to be really, really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
How are they going to get themselves in the right frame of mind?
They're prepped already. I think they'll be ready. I really do. A lot of the prep comes before the tournament. But over the next couple of days, they'll just be light training. They'll be ready for it. They know what they're expecting. A lot of the hard work's been done. Now, hopefully, they can. I mean, I'm going to sound like a cliche, but go out and play and enjoy yourself. And hopefully, Sunday morning, everything's going to be terrific. See, the thing is, that it was weird because the viewing figures yesterday for that game were not as high as usually expected. And I've now realised why. It's because you guys were on at the same time.
Yeah,
of course.
So once you then... So...
Do you know the really annoying thing for me?
He's very upset about this.
It's a delight to cover for Camilla Tominey, our amazing journalist who presents the Sunday morning show. But it means that I'll be covering for her show. I'll be presenting on this channel at the same time as the World Cup final.
Right, OK.
I'm just not expecting... it'll be a nice way to ease myself into that cover presenting slot, but I'll have stiff competition.
Tom, listen, I'm going to be multi-screening. You'll be you there, we'll have the Lionesses on the other side.
Yeah, just flip over at half-time. That's all I ask.
What you should do, right, is watch the game on silent, GBNews Radio.
Genius.
You know what? That's why it's so good.
That's the secret.
That's the brain. That's the brain that works. Excellent stuff.
Well, Coy,
can't wait. Very good.
Thank you so much for talking
Love
us
your
through all that.
positivity as well.
I absolutely believe that, and hopefully we'll celebrate tomorrow.
Well, manifest.
With that bank holiday, Tom.
And you support a bank holiday, do you?
Of course I do.
I'm
have every day a bank holiday.
I'm gonna look at the inbox in a second, and it is going to be 99% pro-bank holiday. I'm well aware of this.
We can never have too many. May was lovely. Wasn't it like three bank holidays? There was only 1 week where we didn't have one.
Free money.
That's the world I want to live in. Anyway, top A-level results in... Coity, we love you. Thank you very much. Now, top A-level results in England, Wales and Northern Ireland have fallen for a second year running, with 27.2% of all grades marked at an A-star or an A. It still seems quite high, doesn't it?
It really does. Now, for those watching on television, we're seeing a tweet from Rishi Sunak, who is retweeting Jeremy Clarkson's annual Results Day message of support. He always says he got a C and 2 U's, and he ends up with his own brewery. Some years he says he's got a Ferrari. But it's interesting what Rishi Sunak has said here, that Jeremy Clarkson was the exception rather than the rule. Results Day is important, but not necessarily a deal-breaker. It's a sort of a middle-of-the-road message there from our technocratic Prime Minister. But let's now get the views of GB News presenter Arlene Foster, who joins us now. Obviously a huge day for students in Northern Ireland, Arlene, but I'm particularly interested in how Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland are not moderating the results as much as England is. The results are closer to where they were in the pandemic years, whereas England has really sort of tried to deal with this grade inflation in a bigger way. Why is that?
Well, first of all, it's good to be with you on this very important day. But I have to say this: it is important day levels. I agree with the Prime Minister. Of course, it's an important day, but it's not the end of the world if you don't get what you need, because there are lots of other options out there. And it was very interesting to listen to some of the experts on breakfast this morning on GB News talking about the fact that there's so many different routes for people nowadays, and including those all-important apprentices where people can earn as they learn. And I'm more and more coming to the position that whilst in the Blair era it was education, 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 now it should all be about skills. So it should be skills, skills, skills. And I think that's where we should be really focusing on. Yes, in terms of the grade inflation which happened during those terrible years for students in 2020, 2021, 2022, the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, has decided that she wants to deal with that. She wants to get back to normal and to make sure that A-levels really mean what they say. In Wales and in Northern Ireland, they have said that they are moving towards that. However, they aren't fully there yet, and that they hope to be in that position next year. So they're taking a slower route back to normality. But of course, Ellie and Tom, this has been a very difficult time, because for a lot of young people, this is the first time that they've sat an examination, and that's a big thing for a lot of young people. But we have to get to the stage where people understand that A-levels are meant to be challenging, they're meant to be tough, and as Ellie has said, whilst they've dropped off a little bit from the grade inflation, they're still quite high, and they're still above pre-pandemic level in England and indeed right across the UK.
And how much do you think that's affected the students, Arlene, for this being their first exam experience? They didn't sit their GCSEs, of course, that was during lockdown. This would be the first time that they've been in that exam hall, first time they've learnt how to revise properly for that closed book examination. Do you think that that may have hindered them in terms of their results?
Well, I very much hope that schools have been supporting those students and giving them techniques to revise. I find from my own children that GCSEs, it's difficult. They don't really know how to revise. By the time they get to A-levels, there's more of an understanding of how to revise. But of course, that was all changed during the pandemic. And therefore, teachers really and parents have to try and intervene and give them support systems as to how to revise and how they need to sit these exams. But I do have to say, it is important that children sit exams. It is important that we realise that A-levels are a huge step up from GCSEs, because they are preparing you then for the next step if you choose to go down this road of university. And university is a big change. You're living independently, you're having to do everything on your own. And I thought it was interesting that some people were reporting that dropout from university has actually increased post the pandemic period, because some children are struggling with universities because they didn't have that gradual step up to university courses.
Well, Arlene, it's always a pleasure to have you on the programme. Thank you so much for your perspective there. Of course, this is a results day that is affecting all corners of our United Kingdom. But let's cross over to our reporter, Jack Carson, who's at a sixth form college in Wales. Jack, what's going on there?
Yeah, good morning to you both. I'm here at College Gwent in Wales, where students are coming here to celebrate their A-level results. I didn't realise until I got here it's very different with the results this year, because you don't get that brown envelope anymore. You get essentially them delivered to you on like a portal, and I'm here with Amy White, who's a student here. You managed to actually get into your results this morning. There's been a few students here that haven't been able to get into them, but you've got your results. So what are your results, and are you happy with what you've got?
I had a B in computer science and an A-star in ICT, which I'm really happy about, seeing as computer science is really hard as an A-level. As I did find out last year, but this year I did try a lot harder, revised more, and it did work out in the end.
And tell us, because you're not going on to university, you're going to do an apprenticeship. So tell me where you're going for that apprenticeship, and kind of how that experience was, and what you're looking forward to about that.
Well, I applied for a 4-year apprenticeship at Sony as a software engineer that's located in Pencoed. It was really nice receiving the email that said I got accepted for that. It's just a big achievement, and I just believe that uni wasn't for me, and with an apprenticeship you get work experience and the same qualifications, so I thought that was what was right for me.
And just finally, what was that experience like? I know you said you've done some exams. What was that experience like doing those?
My first ever exam that I did was my one in year 10, and then we went into lockdown, so I didn't get to do any exams until my first year of A-levels, and it was like a big reality, like wake up, because you don't know how to revise anymore, like you don't understand what to do. And I did find that out last year with one of my exams. I did have to resit this year, but obviously I now understand from doing more exams how to deal with them.
Okay, Amy, thanks so much for joining us this morning. That's very much the picture here at colleges across the country.
OK, Jack, really good to see you this morning, and congratulations to Amy as well on what is such an important day, and a lovely sunny day there in Wales as well.
Lovely sunny day, absolutely. Well, still to come, more reaction to A-levels and, of course, the World Cup final, and GB News' Don't Kill Cash campaign, of course, heading to Downing Street this afternoon. We'll be back with Liam and his giant pig. This is Britain's Newsroom.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us. From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 17th of August. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Tom Howard and me, Ellie Costello. Coming up for you today.
GB News is taking the Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street this afternoon, where almost 300,000 of you have signed the petition to ensure that cash remains as legal tender. We've even got a giant inflatable pig to celebrate. And there's still time to sign the petition.
It's a huge morning for tens of thousands of students as it's A-level results day. Grades are expected to drop, though, for a second year running after the pandemic led to a spike in top grades. We'll have the very latest reaction from across the United Kingdom.
And the British Museum in London has sacked a member of staff after irreplaceable treasures, including a 3,000-year-old piece of gold jewellery, were found to be missing, stolen or damaged. We'll bring you all of the details later on this morning.
And finally, should we reclaim all London land that's used as a golf course? Send us your thoughts on that.
And a bit of news this morning. GB News on YouTube has surpassed 1 million subscribers. Don't forget, you can see clips of these shows, even full shows, on the YouTube channel. Just search GB News on YouTube.
Yes, and we do love to hear from you as well. Of course, we're talking about the Lionesses this morning after that incredible game yesterday, looking ahead to the final on Sunday. And we're asking you, if we win, which we will, do we deserve a bank holiday? The answer to that is yes.
I'm slightly delighted. I'm slightly surprised. I've had a peek in the inbox. More people agree with me, no, than I thought would.
No.
But we'll get to more of your views and, of course, all of these stories after the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good morning. It is 2 minutes past 10. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB Newsroom. Now, students across much of the UK are waking up to their A-level results, which have largely returned to pre-COVID levels. The proportion of candidates receiving top grades, that's an A or an A star, has fallen by almost 10% from last year and almost 18% from 2021. It's part of a plan to bring results back to pre-pandemic levels. During COVID, grades were based on teacher assessment. The fall in England, though, has been steeper than in Wales and Northern Ireland, where regulators don't plan to redress the balance until 2024. And the number of students accepted for a place at university is down 2.6% from last year. But Claire Marchant from UCAS says the overall picture is positive.
79% of students today are actually going to their first choice university, which is to be really celebrated. It's up around 5% in 2019, slightly down on last year, but that's what we expected as return to normal grading. So a day to celebrate, as you say, for them. Our job at UCAS is to support those that changed their mind or indeed didn't quite get the grades they wanted.
And Education Secretary Gillian Keegan has confirmed A-level grades are returning to normal, back to normal with pre-pandemic grading.
University places and the access to university is still exactly the same as it was. So if they were going to, if they'd have got a B and gone to university in 2019, they'll get a B and go to university in 2023. So all we've done is, and this is really important because our exams, both GCSEs and A-levels, are highly regarded across the world, and we just want to make sure they keep that value. And obviously we needed to go back from teacher assessed grades, and we did that last year, but now we're going back to the normal grading system, and that will make sure that these hold their value.
One question on Labour's policy of getting 50% of all students into university, the Shadow Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, told us young people should have choices.
If I were Education Secretary, I'd make sure that under the next Labour government, it's a big focus once again. I mean, that does mean making sure that young people who want to go to university get that opportunity to do so. And for all people tend to talk about that number in terms of 50%. It's often far less in places like Sunderland, where I'm an MP, where young people have those opportunities. It's about the range of opportunities, and it's about young people having real choices about what's best for them. An apprenticeship, university, the world of work, further study.
GB News' Don't Kill Cash petition is being delivered to the Chancellor later today. Jeremy Hunt will receive more than 270,000 signatures on behalf of viewers and listeners who've joined the campaign. Some live pictures there of the pig in front of Westminster. And the letter is calling on the government to protect the status of cash as legal tender and a widely accepted form of payment until at least 2050. Reform UK advisor Ben Habib says those who still use cash are being discriminated against.
You know, there are 5 million people in this country who rely on cash trades, who don't have bank accounts and credit cards and so on. And they've been marginalised, and they're continually being marginalised. And if we move to a society where cash is discriminated against, where restaurants refuse to take it, shops refuse to take it, in effect, that promise on the back of a £10 note and all other legal tender becomes a meaningless promise.
And we'll have pictures, live pictures of the petition being handed to Downing Street on GB News from 2 p.m. Hundreds of firefighters in Spain have been battling wildfires on Tenerife. Authorities say, though, they are out of control. The fires, which broke out at a mountainous national park on the island, spread 7 square miles in 24 hours. The fires expanded quickly across dry woodland near the Mount Teide volcano, that is Spain's highest peak, and that has hampered the efforts of the emergency services. Last week, a heat wave in the Canary Islands left many areas dry, heightening the risk of wildfires, as the rest of Europe also battles the effects of scorching temperatures. And over in Canada, a similar picture. Officials have ordered the evacuation of the Northwest Territories as wildfires threaten the town of Hay River. Thousands of residents from the territory in towns are struggling because they've been ravaged by flames. Canada is enduring its worst wildfire season, I should say, with more than 1,000 active fires burning across the country, including 230 in the Northwest Territories. This is GB News on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. But now it is back to Ellie and Tom.
Welcome back. It's 7 minutes past 10. Loads of you getting in touch with us this morning. So thank you so much for your company. Of course, we are talking about the Lionesses, that fantastic display yesterday. And the question is, if we win the final on Sunday, do we deserve a bank holiday? I say yes. Tom says it's not very sensible.
The way you phrased that, do we deserve a bank holiday? That's a leading question. In polling, that would be determined as a leading question. That wouldn't be allowed. YouGov would never say that. No, should there be a bank holiday? The cold, hard economic reality, in my view, is it would just cost too much GDP to do. But Daniel disagrees with me. Daniel's written in to say, I think there should be a bank holiday if the Lionesses go on to win the World Cup.
I agree with you, Dan. And I do think if the men had won the World Cup, I don't think there'd be a question. Of course we'd have a bank holiday.
I'm not sure.
OK, Peter's been in touch saying, of course there should not be a bank holiday if the English women win the World Cup. It's a cringeworthy idea by Labour and the Liberal Democrats to try and win votes.
And actually, there's quite a few people saying no. Indeed, Rob has written in to say no, no, no. It's easy for parties not in power to demand these things, but they're very expensive and affect our productivity.
Yeah, no, I just think this is a very boring approach. Who doesn't want to be in the pub? David, bank holiday, should Lionesses win on Sunday? No.
I'm actually genuinely surprised that so many people here agree with me. Let's see if anyone actually agrees with you, Ellie. Hang on.
Stop now.
It's all well and good asking for a bank holiday. However, just for a moment, think about the small businesses around the country who are struggling to survive. Dave completely agrees with me. I'm genuinely surprised here.
No, now listen to me about that. We talk a lot about Great British pubs and the decline of them and how difficult it is to get people through the door. A bank holiday, celebrating the Lionesses winning the World Cup. Now imagine the scenes.
Oh, we should go to the pub anyway.
I think it would be the right thing.
We should go to work and at lunchtime go to the pub and then go back to work and then after work go back to the pub.
No.
You can have the best of both worlds. Best of both worlds.
Anyway.
But you know what? Someone who's got a very good brain for economics is our very own business and economics editor, Liam Halligan, who is live on Albert Embankment with a giant inflatable pig. And before we get to Don't Kill Cash, Liam Halligan, it is true, isn't it, that bank holidays do cost the economy in terms of those growth statistics?
Tom, you're a clever bloke, but you just asked me the kind of very leading question you just accused Ellie of posing.
Exactly, Liam.
Take that. No, let's see what happens. Let's win the game first. Of course, an incredible achievement for the Lionesses to get there, and I'm sure the whole country will be rallying round. But look, that's Sunday. This is today, and what's today? It's Pound Hog Day. That's what it is.
Hey, very good.
Is the name for the GB News Don't Kill Cash pig that is currently at the top of my list. And here's some others. Julie says we should call our Don't Kill Cash campaigning pig Penny Pincher. I like that. Keith says, what about Lolly? As in money, I like that. Michael suggests Miss Moneypenny. Alan goes with Wonga. Other loan companies are available. James says, surely it's got to be guinea, as in guinea pig. A guinea, of course, being an old-fashioned word for a pound and a shilling. Lynn suggests coin loin, but I still think pound hog is the one to beat, unless we call it Nigel and give it a cigar. But look,
my favourite one, Liam, was a Jacob Rees hog.
Jacob Rees hog. Well, then we'd have to give the pig a little monocle. We are rapidly approaching 290,000 signatures. Keep those GB news bulletins updated because we want to be at 300,000 by the time myself and other GB News presenters go to Downing Street, go to number 11 and hand in that petition. And in all seriousness, this is a campaign of enormous importance to millions of people. Why? Because 10% of UK households don't have regular access to the internet. Over 1 million UK households don't have anyone living in them that has a bank account. Many of us, many of the vulnerable, many of the elderly, they can't live with smartphones and debit cards and tap to pay. That isn't their world. They want to keep some cash. And that's why we're asking the British government to legislate to make sure that cash is legal tender, that shops have to accept cash as legal tender at least until 2050. There's a growing trend of shops that don't accept cash. They don't want the cash handling costs. There's a growing trend, of course, of high street banks closing down their branches. There's a growing trend of tech giants using our online purchasing behaviour, selling those behavioural patterns to marketing companies who then bombard us incessantly with marketing campaigns to buy stuff that we don't need. This is a serious campaign. We are moving to a cashless society. As that shift happens, we need to be mindful of parts of society who want that shift to happen more slowly. So we're trying to focus the British government's mind. It's an important point. We're down here at Westminster. People going past, honking their support from their cars, people giving us thumbs up as they cycle past, all kinds of Londoners. And talking of Londoners, another late bid to name this pig is sausage, as in rough-hewn London, Cockney rhyming slang, sausage and mash, cash. You heard it here first.
Well, Liam, thank you so much for not just the update on those numbers. There's an incredible movement that has been created behind this petition, almost 290,000 signatures, but also, of course, the potential names for this pig. I really enjoy hearing all of them. Liam, we'll be back to you later in the programme.
Yeah, we are nearing those 300,000 signatures, so do keep signing that petition. As Liam says, we are moving toward a cashless society. Some would say that's a good movement. Others would say they still rely on cash. Do let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com. But some very sad breaking news for you now. The BBC is reporting that TV host Michael Parkinson, who interviewed thousands of stars on his chat show, has died at the age of 88. Michael Parkinson, many would know as Parky, wouldn't they? Known for his interview style, known for his smiles, a television presenter, radio presenter, author and journalist, has a wife and also leaves behind 3 children.
Such a staple of interviews, such a staple of broadcasting life for so many years. It's a sad day. Michael Parkinson, to repeat, has died at the age of 88.
Yeah.
But moving on to our main story today, England are through to the Women's World Cup final and English football's first global final since 1966.
The beloved squad beat co-host Australia 3-1 on their own turf in a gripping semi-final.
On Sunday, the Lionesses will take on Spain for a chance to take on the trophy amid some calls for a bank holiday to properly celebrate.
Well, let's speak now to footballer Kerys Harrop, who holds the all-time record for most appearances in the Women's Super League. Kerys, really good to see you this morning. First of all, your reaction to that game yesterday, because it really was nerve-wracking stuff, wasn't it? Especially when we were 1-1.
Yeah, no, it was a really exciting game. Obviously coming up against Australia, they were a very good team with the likes of Sam Kerr. It was a home game for them, so the crowd was behind them. They had the 12th man. But no, it was really impressive. England performed very well. I've obviously watched them throughout the whole tournament, and this was definitely their best performance so far. So I was just really chuffed for some of the girls I've played with previously in the England setup. Lots of Lucy Bronze, who's missed out on a World Cup final for the last 2 World Cups. So just really pleased and chuffed for the girls.
It's such an incredible moment. You can sort of feel the country coming together around this. I wonder what this will do for women's sport moving forward. Of course, the Euros were meant to be this big moment to sort of get more girls playing football in school. Will this only add to that campaign?
Definitely. The more success, the better. And the fact it's all on TV and everyone's tuning in to watch. You know, I was in a small village pub yesterday, and it was amazing to see how many people of all different ages and genders had packed in to watch the game. So yeah, it's going to have a real positive impact on the nation, and even more so if the girls win on Sunday.
It says a lot, doesn't it, that we beat hosts Australia yesterday on home turf with the crowd fully behind the Australians, and it's the Lionesses that came out victorious. We've been playing really quite well, haven't we?
Yeah, very well. Certainly the last couple of games. I think some of the group games at first were a bit ropey, you know, seeing the Lionesses win the Euros last summer and knowing how well they played. I think the first couple of the games, maybe the girls weren't up to their own personal standards, but, you know, in the last couple of games where the performances have really meant the most to be able to get the win, the girls have showed up, they've been very resilient and just been scoring some fantastic goals. You know, like Savella Toon's goal yesterday was brilliant. So hopefully more of the same on Sunday.
How will the team be feeling, I suppose? There's sort of this lull now between that spectacular victory yesterday and the final on Sunday. It must be a nerve-wracking time. How will the team sort of keep focused on that game and make sure that they can continue their winning streak?
Well, they'll be doing analysis on the game yesterday, so they'll be looking back and having meetings around how they performed, what they did well, what they could maybe improve for Sunday. And then they'll be doing a recovery session today, I assume, with, you know, ice bath and all the nice things that come with that, maybe a nice sauna. And then they'll do analysis for the game against Spain on Sunday. So, yeah, they'll be keeping busy. I'm sure they'll be nervous, but they're very focused. You know, the girls in the camp with Serena will be just focused on this World Cup final because it's going to be the biggest game in their lives.
And what do you make of Serena Wiedmann's management style? Because she has been so successful, hasn't she, in terms of the Euros last year and now the performance we're seeing from the Lionesses in the World Cup this year. A lot of people would say that is down in a large part to that one woman.
No, it is for sure. I think obviously being within teams myself and having won tournaments and competitions, a lot of it relies on kind of the respect the players have for the manager. If the manager is well respected and liked, and you almost put in a bit more effort for not just for yourself but for the coach as well. And you see interviews with Serena, and she's very down to earth and just a very humble person. She's enjoying the ride as much as everyone else, and on top of that, she's a fantastic coach as well. So yeah, it's definitely a recipe for success when you have a coach that is well liked and respected.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna tease you now for a prediction. How do you think it's going to go on Sunday?
Well, my predictions so far haven't been great. They've always been England winning, but the scoreline hasn't been say as good as Farrah Williams, who's been getting all her predictions correct. But it's going to be close. You know, Spain are a good team, but I'll go with 1-0 to England.
1-0 to England, but you think it's going to be close. Very interesting. OK, really good to see you this morning. Thank you so much, Keris. And best of luck to the Lionesses on Sunday as well.
Absolutely. Build up. I had no idea they'd be doing ice baths. That's...
Well, of course they would. They're athletes.
Shows what I know. Well, up next, we'll be returning to that very sad breaking news that Michael Parkinson has died. More on that after this.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle. I know, yeah. Please stop. Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But bomb.
And action.
Sergeant read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 25 minutes past 10. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Ellie Costello and Tom Harwood.
Now, more on this breaking news that the BBC is reporting TV host Michael Parkinson, who interviewed thousands of stars on his chat show, has died aged 88.
Well, our national reporter Paul Hawkins joins us now in the studio. Good morning to you, Paul. I mean, this is the death of a legendary TV host, isn't it?
Yeah, legendary TV host, broadcaster, author. He's a broadcasting legend, and he's the master of the chat show. Really, maybe only Terry Wogan you can speak about in the same breath as well, and someone who's very well known, especially for his chat show called Parky, which ran for 2 seasons, first in I think it was the 70s, and then it came back in the 80s on the BBC. He's estimated to have interviewed over 2,000 people, probably the two most famous. And when the news first broke this morning, the first two that sprung to mind for me were that famous interview with Muhammad Ali. In fact, he interviewed Muhammad Ali twice. Really incredible interviews, and that was part of his technique, which I'll come on to. Probably the other famous interview, though, from Parky was also when he was with Rod Hull and Emu, famously pecking him on his leg and grabbing him. It's a fantastic bit of television. But, yeah, he started out, he's Yorkshire-born, started out his life in newspapers, then moved on to radio, onto television. He also did stints presenting the old ITV breakfast show, TVAM, as well. And really his kind of laconic, warm style of interviewing, where he made the interview really... A lot of interviewers fall into the trap of making it about themselves, but he didn't. He put the guest, the interviewee, at the centre of it, and that's what brought out the best in him, and he will be very fondly remembered. Just a quick statement from his family, by the way. They say that after a brief illness, Sir Michael Parkinson passed away peacefully at his home last night in the company of his family. But, yeah, many, many, many tributes will be pouring forward today in tribute to the great man.
It's such a fascinating style of interviewing. It's more relaxed. It's sometimes described as sort of a warm ray of sunshine, getting people to sort of open up, rather than the battering, howling winds that sort of force people to sort of close down. I suppose he got more out of his interviewees by being open and generous.
Yeah, and making it really informal and conversational. If they'd been doing the interview in a pub, it would have been exactly the same, and that was part of his of the art. Like I said, he honed his journalism in newspapers. He worked for the Manchester Guardian, I think it was, to start with. Then he went on to the Daily Express. Saw some military service during the Suez Crisis, when he served 2 years doing national conscription, and then from there he went on to TV. And he will be best known for his TV chat show. Like I said, 2,000 guests, some of the world's most famous people. Also a massive cricket fan as well. Played a little bit of cricket in the very, very early days with Geoffrey Boycott, and a very proud Yorkshireman.
Yeah. Oh, it's just such a loss, isn't it? As you say, a broadcasting legend.
I'll always remember the Desert Island discs that he used to do.
Yeah.
Later in his career, of course. But
Thank
Paul
you,
Hawkins,
Paul.
thank you so much.
Thank you. And do get in touch with your memories of Sir Michael Parkinson. Very sad news this morning that he has died at the age of 88. GBViews at gbnews.com. We'd love to hear your memories, perhaps your favourite interview that Parky ever did. Do let us know.
Well, back to one of our other big stories today. Students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland have been getting their A-level results this morning.
Yes, top A-level results in England, Wales and Northern Ireland have fallen for a second year running, with 27.2% of all grades marked at an A star or an A.
Well, let's cross over to our reporter Will Hollis, who's at the University of Derby for us. And Will, how are things there?
Good morning. Yes, well, the clearing team here at the University of Derby have already taken hundreds of calls from applicants, students that got their A-level results this morning. Some of them maybe didn't do quite so well as they hoped. Others might have done even better, so they're getting in touch with universities like this one here. So when they make that call to the clearing hotline, which hopefully is a way that they can get a place on a certain course, they'll come through to people like Visha. Visha, you're manning the phones and you're also on the computers looking at different grades and seeing if people's UCAS points match up. What we've got this year is a return to the grading system pre-pandemic, so there's no longer that uplift. How does that actually affect the job that you're doing here on the clearing hotline?
We're actually seeing a really busy phone line this year. We're seeing high tariff students that might have missed out on that one grade subject, so it really doesn't matter. Clearing is an opportunity for all students all across the country.
Then what kind of calls are you taking? Are people feeling a little bit stressed, a little bit tense, or do you find that with anybody that's going to be going to university, 18 or even older, that they're actually just really excited to take that next step?
I think it is more excitement. Yes, there is always that nerves, you always feel it in your belly, but it is the excitement, it's the rush of going to university, it's the experience that students are going to get that they might not be able to get with just going to college or sixth form.
This year is a little bit different because we've got rid of that uplift. Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, says that's the right thing to do right now. You've done this job before. You do a different job at the university, but every year you do clearing since 2016. Just describe for me, what's this atmosphere like and what does it mean to you getting to do this and hopefully get people onto a course where they might have 3 years or more of a fantastic time at your university?
It's very much of a buzz environment here at the university. We enjoy celebrating the success stories that we are getting through the phones. We are always being positive. There's always an option for students with us, so it's always a great opportunity for people to come in.
And what's different about this year because of things like the cost of living crisis? Is that affecting people's choices for what they might do for a course or where they might want to go to university?
Yeah, we do see effects of the cost of living crisis. We're actually seeing more local students come to us within the Midlands, so that's a great reach to us as a community, as Derby University. So yes, we do see a few more students are coming to us.
This is a packed out hall. You can probably see on TV occasionally a paddle will go up. For people on radio, you won't get the magic of it, but if you have a problem, you're clearly an expert, but if you've got a problem and you can't answer a question, what do you do so that somebody can hopefully come over and help you? Lots of people on the call line here, hundreds of calls taken already from students that want to take that next step here at university.
Well, Will, thank you so much for showing us a bit behind the scenes there of what goes on a day like today. Absolutely fascinating stuff. University of Derby there that Will Willis is at.
Busy day for the clearing team. I think there's going to be a busy day for clearing teams at lots of universities up and down the country where students have missed those grades
or
this year.
Or indeed students who just want to sort of maybe aim a bit higher. Maybe go clearing isn't just about those who's missed grades.
Could go both ways. Yeah. Well, Emily's been in touch saying, personally, I don't recommend clearing. When you don't get the results you're expecting, it can be very difficult not to get swept up in all the chaos, and you could just end up applying to any old university and any old course. She says, my advice would be take the time, take a year out, work, travel and learn, then reapply with a fresh mind. So a different view there from Emily. Thanks for getting in touch.
Well, still to come, is it time to declare war on golfers for the amount of land that their courses use? I read one statistic that showed more land is used on golf courses in this country than housing.
You sure about that one?
I'll double check.
Yeah, I think it's best. First, let's have a look at today's headlines. Here's your news with Aaron Armstrong.
It is 10:33. Let's get you up to date with the headlines from the GB Newsroom. Sir Michael Parkinson, one of Britain's most celebrated broadcasters, has died at the age of 88, as reported by the BBC. The family confirmed in a statement to the corporation, which said after a brief illness, Sir Michael Parkinson passed away peacefully at home last night in the company of his family. They have asked for privacy and time to grieve. The presenter is best known for his conversational interviews with high-profile guests like Muhammad Ali, Madonna and Billy Connolly. Top A-level results have fallen for the second year in a row. 27.2% of all grades in England, Wales and Northern Ireland were marked A or A star. That's down from almost 45% in 2021. It's part of a plan to bring results back to pre-pandemic levels. During COVID, grades were based on teacher assessment. The fall in England, though, has been steeper than in Wales and Northern Ireland, where regulators don't plan to redress the balance until 2024. GB News Don't Kill Cash petitions being delivered to the Chancellor later this afternoon. Jeremy Hunt will receive more than 285,000 signatures on behalf of listeners and viewers who've joined the campaign. The letter is calling on the government to protect the status of cash as legal tender until at least 2050. And you can watch that petition being handed to Downing Street live on GB News from 2 o'clock. Meanwhile, 2/3 of NHS cancer's targets will be scrapped by the autumn. Under new government plans, the 10 targets currently in place will be reduced to 3. And the 2-week wait target will be scrapped in favour of what will be called the faster diagnosis standard. As it stands, 93% of people referred urgently by their GP with suspected cancer must be seen by a specialist within 2 weeks, although that target hasn't been achieved since early 2018. We'll be back with more in about half an hour's time, or there is more on our website, gbnews.com.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2708 and 1.1691 euros. The price of gold is £1,490 and 77 pence per ounce. The FTSE 100 is at 7,334 points.
Direct Bullion sponsors the finance report on GB News, investments that matter.
Well, Ellie, during that bulletin, I looked up the question that we were asking, is more land used for golf courses than housing in the UK? And
you were wrong.
We're both right. We're both right. It depends how you count the house. If you include gardens, then you're right. More land is used on housing. If you only look at the footprint of the houses, though, then more land is used for golf courses.
Well, there you
Fun
go.
fact.
We agree on that one then, perhaps.
We've got lots more to discuss coming up after this.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 20 to 11 and this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Tom Harwood and Ellie Costello.
Now, 11,000 acres of land in Greater London, the size of 42 football fields or 671 tennis courts, will be given away to golfers. That's according to data from the Ordnance Survey.
Now, is this one of the reasons why Londoners aren't getting on the housing ladder? Well, one man declaring war on golf is business and technology correspondent at the Evening Standard, Simon Hunt. Simon, why do you hate golf?
Morning, thanks very much. I should say that the piece I wrote for the Evening Standard is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I don't hate golfers. I don't want to declare war on them. I don't want to see some kind of immediate ban on golf or something as extreme as that. But what I am trying to do is draw attention to an issue which is very pressing in London, which is we have a housing crisis. There are homes to go around, rents and house prices have skyrocketed. People on sort of middle incomes don't think they have a realistic prospect of getting on the housing ladder. And given that such a huge amount of the land in London is used towards golfing, maybe we should consider how much of that is fair.
I mean, how much do you think we need to look at as this is the answer? So building on green land, be that a golf course or fields or something like that. I mean, we are a green and pleasant land, aren't we? That's what England is known for. Many people like living near golf courses and those beautiful manicured lawns. There is a benefit to that. Do you think that perhaps we should be looking at something like land density and using the land that is already built on and just building upwards?
I mean, I think it's not either or. I think it's a question of both. But I mean, as far as golf courses are concerned, a lot of them are only green in the sort of literal sense, in that they have lawns, but they're not green in an environmental sense. I mean, they consume huge amounts of water, and of course, historically, a lot of them were created by knocking down millions of trees. And so, actually, you could turn them into genuinely green places by rewilding, say, 50 or 60% of the land and then converting the remainder to housing.
Is there a risk here that with this eye-catching campaign, certainly provocative campaign, the people that might sort of be on the fence about whether or not they're a NIMBY or a YIMBY, that's no in my backyard or yes in my backyard, would those people perhaps be turned off by campaigning like this, when actually what's needed is to sort of bring people forward if you want to sort of get more houses built?
Yeah, I mean, I you know, there was perhaps a bit of sensationalism in the piece, but you know, I was trying to draw an attention to an important issue. I mean, I can completely respect some concerns that people have if, you know, suddenly a huge development suddenly arrives in your back garden and you're a bit worried about how it's going to look and whether it will change your community and so on. But I mean, there are always going to be a small subset of the population who are, if you like, NIMBYs, and you know, perhaps they will never be convinced. You know, there's only so much we can do to assuage their concerns, and there are much more pressing concerns by people who are struggling to either get on the housing ladder or even struggling to find a place they can afford to rent.
I mean, a lot of this is just about a shortage of affordable housing, isn't it, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not necessarily the case that it's about a shortage of space, because, as I say, that if you add up the amount of golf courses in London, they are combined. They are larger than the size of 2 boroughs of Hackney. So it's not the case that we don't have the space to build these houses in London, these affordable houses. It's how we're managing that space.
That's an incredible statistic. 2 boroughs of Hackney taken up by golf course. Perhaps that actually does shift the calculations here. It's not saying get rid of every golf course. It's saying maybe 1 or 2 of these things could be put to better use. It's a really interesting conversation.
Absolutely.
And, no, thank you, Simon Hunt, for starting that conversation. No doubt people at home will have views. GBViews at gbnews.com is the address to write into.
Now, as we were just telling you a moment ago, very sad news has broken this morning that Sir Michael Parkinson, one of Britain's most celebrated broadcasters, has died at the age of 88.
Well, Carol Malone is with us now, and she's met the legendary broadcaster. Carol, just your memories of Michael Parkinson.
You know what was fantastic about him? I mean, I interviewed him a couple of times, and he was the worst person ever to interview because he was a journalist, and if you asked a stupid question, he wasted no time in telling you it was a stupid question. He was terrified. Both him and John Humphreys were the scariest interviewers I ever did, because they're proper journalists, and that was fantastic about him as an interviewer on television, because the biggest Hollywood stars subjected themselves to interviews by him because they knew he wasn't trying to score points. They knew he genuinely wanted information. And, you know, people told him things that had never been said before. And I mean, I don't know whether you guys remember some of the people that he did interview, you know. He made Billy Connolly's career, for instance. He had Billy Connolly on every 3 months, and it was fantastic. But he had people like Muhammad Ali on, he had Lauren Bacall, he had David Niven. And they told him stuff that they had never told anybody else. And that style of interview wasn't the norm at the time. It was a very different style.
More relaxed?
It was relaxed in the sense, but like every good journalist, what he used to do, I used to recognise what he was doing all the time. Journalists, you ask 3 innocuous questions, and then the 4th is the killer, where you have to open your soul. And it kind of makes you feel, you know, the 3 soft questions make you feel, and he was a master at that. And what he was also a master at was he did all his own research. He wouldn't have a celebrity on talking about a book unless he'd read it from cover to cover. And I don't just mean skim read, unless he'd read it from cover to cover. He used to spend his week writing the notes for that weekend show. And so there wasn't, and you know, I've lost count of the time stars would say to him, how did you know that then? Because he had dug up stuff. He didn't just take stuff from celebrity magazines, he dug into their lives. And I think because the celebrities knew he'd taken the time to do that, they respected him and in return gave him the stories that he was going for.
Karen, it's really beautiful to hear you describe Michael Parkinson like that, because I think so many people would watch his interviews and feel like he had a certain magic or a certain way with people.
He did.
Do you think you were struck by his lack of ego? Because those interviews were never about him, were they?
Never.
They were always about the guest, and he had this ability to allow that guest to really be themselves.
And if you ever watched him when he was interviewing people, he was listening all the time. You know, he was intently listening. And a lot of interviewers now, you know, I think you could say to some interviewers now, you know, I just fell off a cliff yesterday, but I'm fine. And they'd go, fine. And they'd move on to the next one because they're not really listening. And Parkinson was genuinely interested in the information. And he was also a terrible flirt. You know, he was the most monumental flirt. I remember him doing it with Lauren Bacall. And she actually said, you're flirting with me. And he kind of went, and he did it with Helen Mirren. He got away with Helen Mirren. He was trying to say to her that a lot of her fame wasn't just down to her acting. It was the fact that she wore very revealing clothes and showed her bosoms off. And she said to him, are you trying to say I use my bosoms? And he said, well, kind of, yes. And he got away with it because he'd been flirting with her. The one person I saw he never got was years ago when he interviewed Meg Ryan. And she was purposely being difficult, and she was being horrible to him. And the stupid thing was, she ended up looking like an idiot because nothing he had done or said was rude or intrusive or crossed a line. But he did flirt with women he thought he could flirt with. And he got more out of them, of course.
Well, let's bring in Benjamin Butterworth now. Benjamin, what are your thoughts, reflections on the life of Michael Parkinson?
Do you know, like everybody, I watched him when I was growing up, and I remember the furore when he moved from BBC to ITV, and everyone was furious. But having watched lots of those interviews back, I watched the one with George Michael recently. After George Michael was sort of outed and he'd had an incident in a public bathroom, he sat down with Michael Parkinson for the best part of the full hour. He got the whole show. And the way in which he got people, like George Michael in that very sensitive situation, to open up, to share their truth, but not in a confected way, not in the way that a publicist had written for them in advance, which is what a lot of chat shows have today. I find that quite remarkable. But the other thing that I long for from his show is the fact that nowadays everyone comes in and they just sort of plonk their book down or plonk their film down, and it's just all about that, and they ask sort of, you know, trite questions, whereas he got the person to open up. And I think, as a journalist, as an adult myself, I just wonder how he did it, because it was a really remarkable skill. You felt like he was your friend.
I think that's exactly what people felt like. And he was professional to the end, as I say, but he was terrifying to interview yourself because he would know if you'd done your research. I mean, the times I interviewed him, I spent days before looking up stuff, because I know if I tripped up once, he'd have me. He'd be on your neck.
Sharp.
Yeah, very sharp. Yeah. So, you know, do your work.
Well, don't make him like that anymore.
Well, yeah, and do you know what? That's something that struck me, actually, Karen, when you were speaking there, is there's so many journalists now who wouldn't put in that research, who wouldn't take the time to listen. You know, all those skills that, you know, many would say we've lost, really.
You know, a lot of people, a lot of interviewers now, and I see it, they depend on the research that's done for them in studio, which is all good. Yeah. But if you're a journalist, you know how to get extra stuff. You know, and especially him, he had decades of experience of watching people, looking at people. So, you know, what he brought to the table was, you know...
But also, I suppose that space and that time to develop it. I wonder, actually, if some of that might be coming back now with sort of the podcast world. You get the long form, we've moved away from that in television, and and I suppose on social media as well, everything feels fast, everything feels short. But I suppose it's a really interesting sort of world that's opening up in podcasts.
But you say that, but the thing about the Parkinson show was you had the information was one thing, the stuff you got, the glamour was another, and you could see it. You were there. You could see, you know, all the women stars, the Hollywood stars there. You could, you know, you were there watching them. And I think a podcast is great. You know, you're listening. You know, yeah, you can maybe watch it on a Zoom thing. But I just think the great thing for him was that he never was anything other than the bloke from Yorkshire, which was fantastic. Yeah. And he was interviewing these people who are mega multimillionaires, and they felt at home with him, which is...
Well, if you've just joined us, we are reacting to the news that Sir Michael Parkinson has died at the age of 88. We will continue to bring reaction to you throughout the morning. But he was a legendary TV host, a broadcasting legend. Many of you will have your own memories of Sir Michael Parkinson. Do share them with us. gbviews@gbnews.com.
But let's move on to the other big story of the day. Of course, who could have missed it? Yesterday, the England women's team through to that World Cup final. Benjamin, your reaction?
Well, you know, I'm not usually a football fanatic.
Are you not? You surprised me.
But you know what? I mean, it feels like they really... Oh, God, you shouldn't say it, should you? But it feels like they really could do it because, you know, to beat Australia, co-hosts of this event on home soil, that's pretty remarkable. And... you know, it's not since 1966 that, you know, England has made it to a Football World Cup final. I think I'm very optimistic. It's Sunday morning, if I'm not mistaken, our time that it's going to happen. 11 a.m.
Set your alarm, Benjamin.
I'll set my alarm just after Camilla Tominey. I'll put the...
Ben, did you know the terrible thing is Camilla's actually going to be on holiday this weekend. I'm standing in for her. And we will be on air during that big warm-up, during that big... I don't begrudge people who might have...
well, you're doing an extra day's work. You know. Will you get a day off? That's the question.
Because you know what, I do work Sundays as well.
There's this debate about whether there'll be a bank holiday if we win.
The Labour Party's calling for it, the Lib Dems are calling for it. Rishi Sunak isn't. He's standing... Is this...
I'm with Rishi and Ellie on this one. Oh, you think there should be? No, I'm with you on this one.
I think there should be.
No, I think there should be. If we had a bank holiday for every incredible thing that happened in this country, no one would ever be in work.
Carol, it hasn't happened since 1966.
No, that is true. But I think these girls are just beyond. They have done so much, not just for the morale of this country, and they've made fools of most of the male footballers. But anyway, that's by the by. But I think what they've done is, you know, after last year, after the Euros, there was a campaign launched to make sure that girls had access to football in all English schools, and that is fantastic. And after this, even if they don't win on Sunday, even if they come second, there are little girls all over the country now going to be rushing to join football teams, and that's a fantastic thing. They've achieved so much.
And it feels like these are now household names in the way that the England women's football team perhaps wasn't 4 years ago, dare I say it. It feels like we have sort of entered a different sort of realm when it comes to...
remember in 1966, Tom, when the World Cup was played, women couldn't play in competitive football then. They weren't allowed to. I mean, it's only in recent years. I think the first World Cup for women was 1991 or something. I could be wrong. But anyway, it was around about then. So they've done incredibly well.
Absolutely. Well, we will have much more reaction to all of these stories coming up. The cricketer Geoffrey Boycott will join us in the next hour to pay tribute to the legend Michael Parkinson as well.
Yes, who's died at the age of 88. That's very sad news this morning. We'll be talking about that after this.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant, read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 17th of August. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Tom Howard and me, Ellie Costello. Coming up for you today.
The interviewer of the stars for decades, Sir Michael Parkinson, has died today, aged 88. We'll be remembering a true television icon. His friend and fellow Yorkshireman, Sir Geoffrey Boycott, will join us live.
The Lionesses have done it. They have booked a place in the World Cup final after beating hosts Australia. Spain are up next in the final on Sunday.
And today, GB News is taking the Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street. Almost 300,000 of you have signed the petition to ensure that cash remains legal tender in this country until at least 2050. Don't forget, there's still time to sign.
And it's a huge morning for tens of thousands of students as it's A-level results day. Grades are expected to drop for a second year running after the pandemic led to a spike in top grades. We'll have the very latest reaction from across the United Kingdom.
And of course, we want your reaction to all that is going on today, particularly stories, memories. Perhaps many of you may have met or interacted with Sir Michael Parkinson, who has, of course, sadly died today. gbviews@gbnews.com is the address to get in touch.
Let's get a news bulletin now with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good morning to you. It is 1 minute past 11. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB Newsroom. Sir Michael Parkinson, one of Britain's most celebrated broadcasters, has died at the age of 88, as reported by the BBC. The family confirmed in a statement to the corporation, which said this after a brief illness. Sir Michael passed away peacefully at home last night in the company of his family, and they've asked for privacy and time to grieve. The presenter's best known for his conversational interviews with high-profile guests like Muhammad Ali, Madonna and Billy Connolly. Top A-level results across England, Wales and Northern Ireland have fallen almost back to pre-pandemic levels. The proportion of candidates receiving top grades is down by almost 10% from last year and almost 18% from 2021. Around 73,000 fewer A or A stars have been awarded compared to last year, as part of a plan to tackle grade inflation during COVID, when results were based on teacher assessment. The number of students accepted for a place at university is also down by 2.6% from 2022. But Claire Marchant from UCAS says the overall picture is positive.
9% of students today are actually going to their first choice university, which is to be really celebrated. It's up around 5% in 2019, slightly down on last year, but that's what we expected as we return to normal grading. So a day to celebrate, as you say, for them. Our job at UCAS is to support those that changed their mind or indeed didn't quite get the grades they wanted.
Well, Education Secretary Gillian Keegan says students shouldn't be disappointed and has insisted that the changes are fair.
University places and the access to university is still exactly the same as it was. So if they were going to, if they'd have got a B and gone to university in 2019, they'll get a B and go to university in 2023. So all we've done is, and this is really important because our exams, both GCSEs and A-levels, are highly regarded across the world, and we just want to make sure they keep that value. And obviously we needed to go back from teacher assessed grades, and we did that last year, but now we're going back to the normal grading system, and that will make sure that these hold their value.
Questioned on Labour's policy of getting 50% of all students into university, the Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson told us it's more important that young people have choices.
If I were Education Secretary, I'd make sure that under the next Labour government, it's a big focus once again. I mean, that does mean making sure that young people who want to go to university get that opportunity to do so. And for all people tend to talk about that number in terms of 50%, it's often far less in places like Sunderland, where I'm an MP, where young people have those opportunities. It's about the range of opportunities, and it's about young people having real choices about what's best for them. An apprenticeship, university, the world of work, further study.
GB News Don't Kill Cash petition will be delivered to the Chancellor later today. Jeremy Hunt will receive more than 289,000 signatures on behalf of viewers and listeners who have joined the campaign. And the letter is calling on the government to protect the status of cash as legal tender and a widely accepted form of payment until at least 2050. Reform UK advisor Ben Habib says those who still use cash are being discriminated against.
You know, there are 5 million people in this country who rely on cash trades, who don't have bank accounts and credit cards and so on. And they've been marginalised, and they're continually being marginalised. And if we move to a society where cash is discriminated against, where restaurants refuse to take it, shops refuse to take it, in effect, that promise on the back of a £10 note and all other legal tender becomes a meaningless promise.
And you can watch the petition being handed to Downing Street. That will be live on GB News from 2 p.m. Now, authorities in Tenerife say wildfires on the Spanish island are out of control. 5 villages on the northeast coast of the island have been evacuated as the fire spread some 7 square miles in 24 hours. It broke out at a national park near the Mount Teide volcano, that's Spain's highest peak, which has hampered access for emergency services. And thousands of Canadians have been evacuated from parts of the Northwest Territories, including the provincial capital, Yellowknife, because of wildfires. Canada is ensuring its worst season of fires, with more than 1,000 active burning across the country. 230 of those are in the remote Northwest Territories. This is GB News on TV, on your radio and also on smart speaker. But now it is back to Tom and Ellie.
Welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom here on GB News. My name's Tom Harwood and I'm with Ellie Costello.
And lots of you have been reacting to that very sad news this morning that Sir Michael Parkinson has died at the age of 88. We asked for your memories of Sir Michael Parkinson, perhaps your favourite interviews. So many of you have been in touch this morning, so we're going to share a few of those. Andrew's been in touch saying, when you let people talk during interviews, they reveal more about themselves. And this is something that Sir Michael Parkinson really understood. His interviews with some of the most famous people on the planet were utterly brilliant. A truly great broadcaster, author and journalist. And I also share his love of cricket. That was a huge part of his life. He used to play regularly at Barnsley Cricket Club. R.I.P. Parky.
And Pete from Lanzarote has written in to say, sad news today. We've lost a leading journalist, Michael Parkinson, at the age of 88 years. He was undoubtedly a legend in his own lifetime. I met him in a cricket context several times over in Yorkshire and in London. He was immediately likeable and down to earth, despite the many successes and achievements during his extraordinary life. He'll be sorely missed.
And that is something that's really coming across in these views. It is how likeable and how warm Parky was. Many people, as you said earlier, felt as though Parky was their friend. Trevor says, I know he was a good age, but genuinely saddened to hear of his passing. An absolute legend, a straight-talking man. His shows were brilliant. Rest in peace, sir.
And John has written in to say, very sad news to hear of Sir Michael Parkinson's death. He was a brilliant broadcaster and a talk show host, a true legend, especially liked his own chat show, Parkinson Plus, also presenting Give Us a Clue for a while. My condolences to his family, friends on the sad loss. And he's just added in his favourite interview, which was with Tommy Cooper, who always made him laugh with great comedic timing and magic.
Oh, well, that's really lovely. Thank you so much for those tributes and those memories there. And we will be talking to Geoffrey Boycott, who's a cricketer, a fellow proud Yorkshireman and a friend of Parky. We'll be talking to him a little bit later in the show, so don't miss that.
But before we get to that, of course, England are through to their first Women's World Cup final in history and English football's first global final since 1966. Now, the beloved squad beat co-hosts Australia 3-1 on their own turf in this gripping semi-final yesterday.
Yes, and on Sunday, our Lionesses will take on Spain for a chance to take the trophy. That's amid some calls for a bank holiday to properly celebrate, which I think absolutely needs to happen. Tom does not agree.
We won't go into that
We
right
won't
now.
go into that today. So what impact has this international team had on the next generation of female footballers, the Lionesses of the future? Well, we're joined in the studio now by youth coach at London Football Talent Centre, Yaz Latif, along with his co-captains of the under-16 team, Megan and Sophie. Well, good morning to all three of you. Really good to have you in the studio. Sophie, we'll start with you, shall we? Your reaction to that incredible game yesterday, because that was nerve-wracking stuff, wasn't it?
I think the match was so tense to watch, especially after Australia got their first goal, because it was just such a tense match and you had no idea what was going to happen next. And after half-time, Australia came out like hungry for a goal and they pressed England so much. I think it was really scary to see.
And did you keep the faith, Sophie, or were you quite nervous?
I was quite nervous, but I thought we could pull through, so I'm happy we did in the end.
And Megan, how has all of the focus on women's football over the last 12 months plus really sort of changed how you're training, how perhaps you're seen by your friends, or has it changed at all?
I think it has changed somewhat. I think now women's football is being taken more seriously as a whole, and I think that it's brought so many new people into the game and it's brought so much respect towards women's football. And yeah, now people think, OK, well, this can become somewhat like the men's. And yeah, I just think it's, really, really good.
That's so interesting that you felt that on the ground in the last kind of 12 months or so. Is it something that you two would consider as a career in the future, being a Lioness and playing for your country?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's so much more opportunity now. And I think that just in general, more people watching the sport, more people watching the game, and more people getting involved. So I think that there's more opportunity.
Well, turning to you, Yas, you've been training, you've been a coach, you've been sort of forming these teams. Has there been more interest now following the success of the Lionesses?
I think there definitely has been. I think, just to echo what Megan said and what Sophie have said already, that their opportunities are increasing at a rapid rate. Obviously, the FA have put a lot of funding into kind of growing the girls' game and the female game in general. So I think it's really good to kind of get that. But it's also giving more opportunities for people that maybe didn't think there was a career or a pathway for them in the female game in particular, or football as a whole. So definitely there's been a growth in that. I think it's just making sure that we follow through with that, right?
So what do you want to see? I mean, if we win on Sunday, I say when we win on Sunday, because it's an absolute given. We have to talk about it like it's already happened.
This is your manifesting.
Yeah, we're manifesting here this morning. Are we in this morning? Yes, we are still in the morning. What would you like to see? More funding on grassroots level?
I think there's definitely opportunities out there now. I think there's enough opportunities. Obviously, the more funding they get, the more opportunities they'll get. I think it's the right level of guidance and support around it. So there's definitely an increase in coaches, definitely an increase in number of players. I think there needs to be maybe more diversity in terms of the talent pool of players coming through, as well as the coaches. But I think it's just making sure there's enough pathways, not just for players, but for coaches. One of the biggest challenges is just trying to get more coaches to buy into the female game. Because obviously historically they were obviously more in the men's game. So I think that's probably where the next kind of shift needs to be probably.
It's interesting to see the campaign that sort of sprung up off the back of the Euros to get more football being played for girls in school. I'm interested, how did you two get into playing football? Megan, was football an option for you at school?
When I was younger, yes, definitely. My school teachers at the time, they inducted me into a new team. They told me, OK, well, trial for this team, see if you get in. I sort of progressed from there. I managed to get into that team, and that's where it sort of started off. But when I was younger, like really little, I mean, there weren't many opportunities for girls to play football. It was either play grassroots football with boys or nothing. And I think that's where maybe we need to sort of look at changing things up a bit. Maybe introduce younger girls into football earlier on. I think that's where we need to improve.
And Sophie, what's your journey been with football?
When I was younger, it was kind of just school teams, and it got to the point where I was playing for 2 grassroots teams, and it was kind of, I was trying to take every opportunity I could to play football because there just wasn't much anywhere else. And it was that when I could find like a team that was willing to work with me and was willing to kind of push me to the next level, it was like just grasp the opportunity and like the first thing I could do.
But finding that team, was that a challenge to sort of find the right place to play, or are there all those opportunities that exist?
I was quite fortunate in that there was, like, locally there was a league for, like, a grassroots league, and so I was quite fortunate in that sense. But it was, like, yeah, it was kind of just finding where I could play and where I fit into the team.
I'm really interested to hear what you think about the Lionesses as a squad, because they really strike you as a really friendly group of girls that actually really get along with one another. What do you think of that?
I think in football teams that tends to be the norm. I mean, the girls that I've always played with, they've always been really, really nice, and everyone gets along because they have the same interest. Whereas at school, I think, well, maybe you're not like in a group of people with the same like interests as you, but yeah, in a team, you've got people that are striving towards achieving the same goal as you, and I think that brings everyone together really well.
And yes, there's been so much discussion about management and how crucial that has been, particularly for the Lionesses over the last year and a half. Do you think that's been a crucial factor?
I think definitely. I think what you see, especially with Serena coming in, is there's a different approach. There's that winning mentality that she's bringing from her previous experiences, and I think that is definitely something that they've needed, and it's definitely supported them in this journey so far. Initially going after the Euros and now getting into the final. So I think, yes, is the short answer to your question. Management is definitely a key part to it. But I think it's just more specifically what you notice, and even linking back into what Megan's just said, is that they've all got a collective interest, a shared interest. And I think Serena's able to kind of tap into each person's individual kind of goals within that as well. So I think that's probably what's really helped.
What do you think has been the secret to the Lionesses' success? Has it been fantastic management? Has it been the lack of ego and the friendship that Megan touched upon there? Or is it something entirely different?
I think it's everything that you just said, but I think another massive thing is probably not getting really accounted for is how much support they've actually got behind them. I think there is, with all the support that, you know, with all the way the game's grown, the female game's grown, and the funding and everything that's in it, it's actually brought people together to try and support the Lionesses. Because fundamentally, if they do well, these girls get an opportunity in the future.
And who are the standout stars for you in this squad?
Ooh, I think Ella Team's been fantastic so far. I think Lauren Hemp displayed her ability in the most recent match. And I think Captain Millie Bright, I think that might just be my bias. I do love Millie Bright. Yeah, I think she's been fantastic as well.
What about you, Sophie?
Yeah, I think that, like, to be honest, the whole team's been incredible. I think, like, Georgia Stanway has been, like, controlling the midfield, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're winning so many games, is because she's so aggressive on and off the ball. It means that we're winning in the midfield and we're able to kind of just play, fluidly.
Now, we have been having this entire conversation while there's been a football ominously perched upon the table in front of us. I might be told off for this by our producers, but I wonder if either of you wanted to pop up and show, or Yas as well, if you wanted to show us any skills with the football.
I think it would be great for you to do it,
Sophie. Come on, Sophie. There you go, that's the good captain spirit there.
Might have your microphone there.
Pop your microphone in your pocket there.
Great.
And what are you going to do for us? Some keepy uppies or something?
Yeah, I'll stick with that. Where am I looking?
Yeah,
Right, blame me if you break anything.
Yeah, right.
About where you are, yeah, that looks good.
Go on, Sophie.
Oh, I don't have my hair tied up.
Hey, wow.
Well, you can do that, could you, Tom?
Definitely could.
I'm so
fantastic.
impressed. How many of those do you reckon you could do?
I think my record's like 105.
Wow.
Wow.
I've got an audible sigh of relief in my ear that nothing was broken. Thank you so much for participating in this. It's been an absolute treat to talk to you all, Yas, Megan and Sophie. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And best of luck on Sunday as well to the Lionesses. We are all behind you here, and some Lionesses of the future as well. We can see the next generation coming up. It's really, really exciting stuff, isn't it?
Great stuff. But still to come, Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, will join us live in the studio to discuss the amount of channel crossings and ships that were seized in Dover yesterday. Don't go anywhere.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 11:22. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Tom Harwood and me, Ellie Costello.
Now, let's return to the situation in the Channel. In the last 24 hours, 550 migrants have arrived in the UK via small boats. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, was in Dover yesterday and is with us in the studio now. Mark, big numbers coming across.
Yes, and the authorities have been braced for the fact that because we're entering a bit of a calm period, I say that, I think there's going to be thunderstorms yesterday and it's quite blowy in the Channel today. Gives you the unpredictable nature of everything and how you try to plan for it. But they did believe that over the coming days there's going to be windows in the weather where the migrants can come across the Channel, and of course they always do. So yesterday we had, from very early in the morning, 8 small boats in that morning surge. Then late at night, another 2 small boats that travelled effectively overnight. They've just arrived in very early this morning. So that takes the total in the past 24 hours to 550. And of course, we reported yesterday that the figures have now topped 17,000 for the year so far.
That's so interesting that they are coming very early morning and late at night. Is that because there are more patrols in the daytime? Is that because it's a busier shipping lane in the daytime?
I think some of it is to do with the tidal conditions. In the morning, they get the morning tide, and then, you know, conditions can be favourable in the evening as well. They're looking always, they're very sophisticated now, these criminal gangs, watching weather and tide conditions to get the optimum moment to push off. And yes, some of it is also down to the activity of the French. They come in for a lot of criticism, but they have stepped up patrols. They do intercept some of the boats before they get into the water and puncture them. But a lot of boats do get into the water. What we don't always see is they don't get to this 12-mile mark, which is the halfway mark across the channel, where they're then picked up controversially by Border Force or a lifeboat. You know, many of them actually, just because they've got very small outboard motors, there are fast-running tides in the channel, it can be pretty choppy out there, so they end up turning back. And we know that there were quite a few turnbacks yesterday that just didn't make it, not because the French turned them back, they don't do that, but they just couldn't make it to the...
Sorry to be facetious, does that mean there's something in the Home Office's purported scheme to put a wave machine in the channel? This, of course, appeared in some of the papers. It's popped up again and again. Is this the thinking behind that?
Yeah, it is quite ludicrous. I mean, they don't need to do that because actually the channel can be pretty treacherous. Even when they say it's flat calm, it's never really flat calm. You'll always get some wave activity. They get wakes as well from all of these passing shipping, the big cargo vessels and oil tankers and other shipping that plough up and down the channel that create these huge wakes that can very quickly inundate one of these small boats, especially when now we've seen this trend of up to 65 people being crammed onto the boats. And we're told from the criminal gangs that the boats are a bit more sturdy now in response to tragedies that we saw over the last couple of years. However, we had a tragedy again at the weekend because you can make the boat that little bit more sturdy, but when you then pack it out with 65 people, it doesn't take much to inundate it and overturn it.
And that's the fear, isn't it? Because historically it has been July and August when we've seen these high numbers of people crossing the channel, and you talk about that weather window. Next week looks like it's set to be very, very good weather. Do you think we will see that high-risk strategy of these criminal gangs of packing people into these dinghies to get as many across as they can in that short space of time?
Yeah, there's no doubt that the sort of business model for the criminal gangs is to, you know, put as many people on board as possible. Obviously, they don't want everybody to drown because it's bad for their business, to put it bluntly. But they want to make the maximum profit, so they'll push it right to the end. And they're constantly, you know, trying to see just how much these boats will take in terms of extra people on board. And, you know, from starting out 4 or 5 years ago, this particular crisis, when it first manifested, we had half a dozen, 12 or so on the boats. Then it went up to 20 or 30. And then in the last year or so, it was 40, a maximum of 50. And now, as I say, it's 65. And that's leading to tragedies. And we see that replicated, of course, elsewhere in the world with regular tragedies in the Mediterranean, and reports today of another tragedy off the coast of Africa where a migrant boat that was heading to Spain with 100 people on board capsized weeks ago, apparently. They're only just finding out about this now, but 60 people missing, presumed dead.
Tragic. Mark White, thank you so much for bringing us the very latest fresh from Dover. It's just astonishing, the more and more that we hear about it.
Yeah, it really is. Now, the king of the chat show, Sir Michael Parkinson, has died at the age of 88.
At the height of his fame in the 1970s and 1980s, millions of people tuned in every week to see him tease revelations out of the stars who shared his studio.
Well, we're also extremely privileged to be joined this morning by cricketer and fellow proud Yorkshireman, Sir Geoffrey Boycott. Good morning to you, Sir Geoffrey. Really good to have you with us. And do let us extend our condolences to you as a friend of Sir Michael Parkinson for his very, very sad death at the age of 88. Please do tell us your memories of your friend, Parky.
Well, he was the best chat show host, but I knew him originally. I arrived at Barnsley Cricket Club. I was 15 years of age, and he was a pretty good player. Minor county standard. Yeah, he got runs, and the great Dickie Bird was there, getting 50 every week. And so they've been lifelong friends of mine. But Michael went on to better things. He went on to writing, and his writing was full of stories about Yorkshire, about Barnsley Football Club, about Yorkshire Cricket Club, and many about the people in the area, the mining community. And most of the stories came from his father. And what Michael did, he was clever enough to embellish them with great humour. And then he went on to TV. And in TV, he was the best chat show host because he listened to people. He listened, he not only asked questions, but he listened to them, and he actually liked them. In fact, he didn't like them on the show unless he wanted to have them. And he never lost his Yorkshire. He was brought up in Cudworth, where Dorothy Hyman, the great runner, was, lived and died. And Michael was Yorkshire in every way, and he was the soul of Yorkshire. He understood how we think, how we talk. And that's why he's able to write about Yorkshire people like me and make it funny, humorous. And he was good at chat show because he liked people. As I say, he never pretended to be something he wasn't. He was Yorkshire through and through. He's a good cricketer, which his father said to him. Yeah, I never played for Yorkshire because getting a Yorkshire cap was bigger, his father thought, than what Michael achieved. And that's ridiculous. Michael was brilliant at what he did.
He will have touched so many millions of people across the country. His interviews, we've had so many letters in this morning about people's favourite interviews. But I wonder if you have a particular favourite memory of Sir Michael, perhaps behind the scenes, perhaps away from the glare of the public gaze.
The best one I have is I was trying to get on as a young man playing cricket for Barnsley. And then they dropped me one week for him. And he went and got 100 against Harrogate. He was a good player. And he always said, well, Jeffrey was 5 years younger than me. I was quite a young kid, but he makes it very funny when he's told it. And it is true. He was a good cricketer. But you just laughed with him. I used to stay with him on the Saturday nights of a Lord's Test match. Because in the early days, we had a rest day on Sunday. And I seemed to be the only northerner playing. So all the lads in the team who lived in Kent, Surrey, Middlesex, Sussex, all went home. And so I would be on my own. So he came to the cricket on a Saturday with Mary. Then he would take me home for dinner. And then Sunday mornings, we would go cricket coaching in the field with his kids. They were all young. And I remember that Michael's father always made the three boys he had, play cricket, but bat left-handed. And then when I asked him that, he said, but left-handers have a big advantage. They're the best players. So young Michael Jr., what must be 50 now, is only about 8 or 9. He says, but Grandad, why is Jeffrey right-handed then? And the only time Michael says his dad was speechless, because I was a pretty good player at that time. He was just a lovely man. He loved cricket, he loved laughter, he loved people like Carbo. You know, he would laugh about himself with the emu. You know, he just laughed. And that was he never lost his humour, his warmth, his Yorkshire in him. That's made him great.
Oh, well, Sir Geoffrey Boycott, it is an absolute privilege to have you on the programme this morning. Thank you so much for speaking so warmly about your friend, the late Sir Michael Parkinson. Thank you so much for your time. Isn't that lovely to be remembered as a lovely man who loved people, never lost their humour and their warmth? That is a really beautiful tribute there from Sir Geoffrey Boycott.
Well, much more on reaction to the passing of Sir Michael Parkinson, and indeed other stories too after your headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
It's 11:33. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB Newsroom. Well, as you've been hearing, GB News can reveal 550 people have crossed the English Channel in 10 small boats over the past 24 hours. It brings the number of migrants who've made the journey this year to more than 17,000. The UK Border Force yesterday spent the day on red alert during what they called an extremely busy time for asylum seekers. A significant surge in crossings is expected this weekend as weather conditions improve. Broadcaster Sir Michael Parkinson has died at the age of 88. Sir Michael became one of the country's most famous faces through his long-running chat show Parkinson. He interviewed some of the world's biggest stars, including Fred Astaire, Lauren Bacall and Muhammad Ali, in a TV career spanning 7 decades. A short statement from his family confirms Sir Michael passed away last night at home with his family, and they have asked for privacy to grieve. Top A-level results across England, Wales and Northern Ireland have fallen almost back to pre-pandemic levels. The proportion of candidates receiving top grades is down by almost 10% from last year and almost 18% from 2021. Around 73,000 fewer A or A stars have been awarded compared to last year as part of a plan to tackle grade inflation during COVID, when results were based on teacher assessment. GB News Don't Kill Cash petitions being delivered to the Chancellor later. Jeremy Hunt will receive more than 290,000 signatures on behalf of listeners and interviewers who've joined the campaign. The letter is calling on the government to protect the status of cash as legal tender and a widely accepted form of payment until at least 2050. And you can watch that petition being handed to Downing Street live on GB News from 2 o'clock. And we have more on all of our stories on our website, that's gbnews.com.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Quick snapshot of the markets today. The pound buys you $1.2728 and €1.1703. The price of gold, £1,490.91 per ounce. The FTSE 100 is at 7,342 points.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for physical investment.
Now, I know you've been missing Miss Moneypenny, Jacob Rees-Hogg,
Penny the Pig,
all these names. We will be back live with our inflatable GB News Don't Kill Cash Pig with Liam Halligan and Bev Turner telling us all about it after this.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the live desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
You are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the big read, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties. We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, welcome back. It is 11:42. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Tom Howard and me, Ellie Costello.
And GB News is set to deliver a petition to the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, this afternoon on behalf of over 280,000 viewers and listeners who have joined our Don't Kill Cash campaign.
Well, with more than 5 million adults in Britain still relying on cash, the letter calls for laws to protect its status as a legal tender and as a widely accepted means of payment until at least 2050.
Well, let's speak now to GB News economics and business editor Liam Halligan and presenter Bev Turner, who join us with a giant inflatable pig on the Albert Embankment just opposite Parliament. Now, Liam and Bev, you're going to hop across the river in not too long. What's this all about?
That's right, we're going to be delivering the petition to Downing Street this afternoon. A huge thank you to all the GB News viewers and listeners who've signed it. We are edging, Liam, towards that 300,000 signatures, which is phenomenal. And I think everybody has a different reason, don't they, for thinking that we need to retain cash. For me, it's very much about having the freedom to transact without somebody always knowing what you're doing, whether that is a corporation or whether that is the government. I think we lose that freedom at our peril. How about you?
Those freedom issues are really important. We know the big tech companies like to monitor all our spending when we do it online. They can then sell that, our behaviour, if you like, the patterns of what we do. They can market stuff to us that we don't need, that we end up buying using cash that we can't afford. It's also the fact there are lots of particularly elderly people, and there are lots of lower income families across the UK, over 1 million that don't have bank accounts. They don't have access to the internet. 10% of homes in this country don't have access to the internet. They can't pay online even when they want to, and this is what this campaign is about.
And also, you know, kids and teenagers. Sometimes we don't want our children to go out with a card and spend more money than maybe you want them to. You want to be able to give them a couple of quid to go down to the shop to buy an ice cream on a day like this. And I think the issue for me, Tom and Ellie, is that we haven't discussed it as a nation. There hasn't been enough conversation around this. It kind of got rushed through under lockdown. And I want to see Parliament debating this. I want to see the MPs justify it to us.
The fact that we've got over 100,000 signatures, we've almost got 300,000. Keep signing the petition, gbnews.com/cash. Because we've got more than 100, we can petition Parliament for a debate, and we're going to do that, and we're going to petition the Chancellor, and I can see the Treasury changing the rules as a result of this campaign. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
William, that's a big statement. We will be catching up with you, of course, throughout the course of the day here on GB News. Both Liam, Bev, and, of course, their giant inflatable pig.
Penny the pig, Jacob Rees-Hogg, whatever
Miss
floats your boat. Miss Moneypenny.
There's so many different suggestions
There's
have been
been
written in.
some
I've
good
lost them
ones,
now,
haven't
but yeah.
there? Well, we're joined now by Benjamin Butterworth alongside Carol Malone, our lovely panel this morning. So what do you make of our campaign, Don't Kill Cash?
No, it's fantastic. I mean, you know, I hate going into shops now and going to pay and being told we don't take cash. My automatic reaction is I want to say, well, I'm taking the stuff. I've only got cash. Make your choice. But it happens, you know, there's a big coffee shop chain, won't take cash. And I don't know whether it's about laziness, that they don't want to have to go to the bank at the end of every day. I'm not sure it's that, or whether they just don't want to deal with cash anymore. But it's legal tender, and we should be allowed to pay with cash. And as Liam quite rightly pointed out there, a lot of elderly people don't have bank accounts. A lot of people on low incomes and on a budget, they can plan what they're going to spend in a week with cash. They know where they are. I kind of know where I am with cash. So yeah, it really, if I could sign 20 times, 30 times, can I do that?
No, I think that's not allowed.
I
wouldn't be. Then,
I won't do that then.
No, I don't think Parliament would accept that. Benjamin, what do you make of this campaign?
Look, I don't use cash, and that's because it makes much more sense to tap my phone, and that makes it much easier. And I think these ideas that it's some kind of top-down conspiracy that's tried to shift people away from cash is not true. It's the free market in action, right? It's much easier for people to tap their card. Even my late grandmother would tap her card rather than use cash most of the time. But I still think, as a matter of principle, they shouldn't be allowed to turn away your £5 note to buy a cup of coffee, for example, right? Because that is
Quite
legal.
Expensive coffee.
Well, I mean, hopefully you'll get change from it.
Yeah, it's almost there.
Can I ask
but
you
I
a
think the fact
question?
that it's legal tender means that it's actually quite a big problem for them to turn it down, because it's real money. You worked hard for it. You should be able to buy whatever you like.
Can I ask you a question? At the end of every month, do you check your bank account to see whether everything you've tapped is right or not?
I get a text message at 7 a.m, a dreaded text message, which tells me my incomings and outgoings from the previous 24 hours.
You see, because I
have to read it because it's the first thing I wake up to. But I do think that's something. You know, I have a pot of coins at home, which has now been there for a while. But I have that because I think if everything goes wrong, if all my income suddenly disappears for some reason, I've got however much money in that pot that I could use to buy food if the worst possible scenario happened. And I think for a lot of people on lower budgets or pensioners, that's the kind of approach they think about it.
Yeah.
It's much easier to monitor your money. And I'm quite wasteful because, you know, when you have all these direct debits and things, I think that is part of it, that it makes you easier to lose track when you use digital money.
Well, I don't know, but then other people would say exactly what you just said with the notification, that going digital actually makes it easier for you to know what you've got.
I think money feels more real when it's physical.
No.
But look, I found £10 in an old Christmas card when I was moving home, and I thought, oh God, what on earth do I do with this?
Oh, you're kidding! Oh, you're sounding ridiculous.
I did.
You spend it. What do I do with
I did.
this?
Thankfully, I went to a supermarket and it was fine. But I was worried that places wouldn't.
I think it's wise you're saving up in case it could all end tomorrow, because I think it's highly likely.
I do have some cash just sitting on a desk at home. I've got some Brazilian coins and a couple of US dollars as well. And I don't know when I'm next going to be able to use them.
Can you use the Brazilian coins in airports to get the trolleys? Because I tried to use my euros.
That's a really... Do you know what? I will try that. Next time I'm in an airport, I'm going in September, so I'll give it a go. But, Carol, you also want to talk about this story, this controversy, really, that's been bubbling up about what is jewface?
This is Bradley Cooper is making a movie. He's starring in it and directing it. And it's about the very famous composer Leonard Bernstein, who was Jewish. Now, Bradley Cooper is making this film with the full cooperation of Bernstein's children, 3 children. But he's being criticised because he has used a prosthetic nose in the film to make his nose bigger, to make him look more like Bernstein did. And he's been accused of, the phrase is jewface, and they're saying that it's promoting the stereotype of Jewish people, and people are comparing it to blackface and yellowface, but I think they're 2 entirely different things. The thing is, Bradley Cooper is an actor. His whole job is about playing people that he's not, playing other characters. He shouldn't be limited to playing, white, Christian, middle-class characters, which is what he is in life. The whole point of an actor is you play. I suppose
lots of people would say absolutely. People who aren't Jewish should be able to play Jewish characters. People who aren't gay should be able to play gay characters. All the rest of it, but. It's the prosthetic nose. Something about the words prosthetic nose just sort of it makes me feel uncomfortable.
But his family this is his kids. They put it at a stem. It says it breaks our hearts to see misinterpretations and misunderstandings of Bradley's efforts. It happens to be true that Leonard Bernstein had a nice big nose. This is his family, and they're saying, and they're perfectly fine with the fact that he looks more like their dad with the nose than he does without it. You can't, no matter how great an actor you are, you can't act a big nose. You can't act the face. So he's making himself look more like Bernstein, who was actually a really handsome man. But what annoys me about all of this is the permanently offended brigade jumping on the bandwagon that they've created.
Well, shall we throw this over to a member of the permanently offended brigade?
Yeah, that's
because Benjamin Butterworth joins us, and I suppose you will have a different view here.
I mean, look, it sounds like this has the support of the people involved, and so that should matter to how we perceive it, right? But the question really is that would you have James Corden playing Nelson Mandela in a biopic of his life?
Different.
I think most people would recognise that even in a dignified way, in the context of acting, mimicking the looks of Mandela, blacking up, basically, would be inappropriate.
Do you think that's
no one would
the same,
accept,
though?
even no matter how great an actor, how much they could portray the essence of Mandela, the physicality would be a boundary that most people would think inappropriate.
But do you think what happens if there wasn't? One is Bradley Cooper's film, and he wanted to play the part. But what happens if they auditioned a lot of Jewish actors and they weren't good enough? So should you put someone in who's not good enough because that happens to be their religion?
But I think the problem with that argument is that, for some underrepresented groups, disabled is probably a particular example. When they don't get the opportunities in the first place, you don't see a lot of that talent being developed and coming through. You don't see people believing they can go and have those roles. Now, I don't think, there are lots of Jewish people who are very influential in films, but I think that people should be aware of this. You've got another one with Helen Mirren, who's playing a former Israeli president in a film being made at the moment, and lots of prominent Jewish voices were not terribly impressed by that.
But this is an actor's job, Ben. They have to play parts. They play parts that are people that aren't them. That's their job. And there's a whole prosthetics industry grown up around the film industry because of this very thing, because they're trying to make actors resemble the people that they're playing so that they're more convincing. You don't believe in that?
I think for a lot of these minority groups, when they don't get the chance to play a lot of other roles, and then someone who has every advantage going can just come in and take the stories, I think that's a problem.
But why are you talking about? We're talking about acting, not minority groups. It's not about minority groups. It's about portraying a character.
But when you get, for example, the series Glee, which had a character in a wheelchair, the actor, it turns out, was not in a wheelchair, and actually, as a viewer, that makes me feel really uncomfortable.
But I think that's different.
But isn't that important, though? Because in Glee, there are some moments, sort of fantasy moments, where he gets up and dances, and you couldn't do that with a disabled person.
Look, the idea of being happy at high school is clearly an absurd. I'll never believe that. But I think audiences are moving towards that because there's an authenticity you expect of the actors. And this idea that it is purely the acting ability that qualifies someone for a job is a nonsense.
It is.
If that were the case...
Well, what is it?
If that were the case, you'd have more people like me as Hollywood heartthrobs.
So is it their religion that determines their suitability for
no, but
the
Jewish people, it's not just a religion, though. It's different. The Jewish people are a people, and there is racism towards Jews in the way there isn't towards Christians or...
But you're forgetting the whole point of acting. Acting is about playing different characters and different people. You can't limit the talent pool to a person's race, a person's religion. You've got to pick the best actor for the job.
It's a fascinating discussion, and there are lots and lots of heartfelt views on all sides. But we've run out of time on stage.
We have Carl Malone, Benjamin Butterworth.
We had so much to...
You've been a delight. Thank you very much. And that's it from Britain's Newsroom today. Are you back tomorrow?
I am back tomorrow. You're off to Italy.
I am. I'm off for the weekend. But up next, it's the live desk with Pip Thompson and Martin Daubney, and they're here to tell us all about it. Good morning to you.
Good afternoon. Lots to come, including masses of tributes to broadcasting legend Sir Michael Parkinson. Our own colleagues, Eamon Holmes and Diamond, are paying tribute. In the last few minutes, former cricket empire Dickie Bird has said there will never be a chat show host like him. He was the best. Dickie was a very close friend of Michael.
Plus, we have exclusive footage from Dungeness of 65 illegals piling ashore, being processed and ordered aboard a luxury coach to a free hotel within 90 minutes. And, of course, live in the show at 2 p.m, an all-star presenters list from GB News will present our Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street. That's right after the weather.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity, though, beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really